right around 10 years ago, we hit $1 million in revenue. In 2020, we were doing roughly $5 million in revenue. And then the merger allowed the three of us to come together. We were at 22 million in revenue, and today we're right around 55 million in revenue.
Hey guys, Damien Stevens, host of MSP Mindset, founder and CEO of Servosity. Today, I continue my mission to interview 100 of the fastest growing and most interesting MSPs on the planet. Today, I am blessed to be joined by Dan Izadorak. And here's one thing that just stopped me cold. He said at $1 million in revenue, he managed to pay himself a couple $100,000 a year and grew to $5 million with 34% EBITDA. So there's so many lessons in what I shared already. How do you pay yourself better? And do you need permission to? The other is, how do you drive that kind of EBITDA? And wait till you hear the rest of his story that took him from 22 employees to 360. If you want to make sure you can pay yourself well, take care of your team, and have a masterclass in EBITDA, don't miss out on my conversation with Dan today. Dan, we were having this conversation, and I found I think every business owner gets to burnout.
Yep.
Maybe not every business owner is willing to talk about it. When did that start to hit you? Tell me where you were in terms of time in your season in your life and business.
I would say, there's different levels of burnout that I experienced, right? There's a time, God, it had to be about 12 years ago. I felt like I'm just kind of running, right? And then, and you feel like you can't break that ceiling. And for us, that was a $2 million revenue ceiling. Maybe that was 10 years ago. We're just trying to hit it. And I kind of had some burnout there, but realized I had to change some of the key players. I think when I really got burnout was things were going really well before COVID, so 2019 and so forth. But I was feeling like I was just on a mission for more MRR, and the day-to-day was kind of a little bit monotonous and a little bit like not new challenges, right? It was like, it was always about like, I love strategy. I love like looking at a client's environment or actually their business, not their technical environment, but their business, and trying to understand where I can help them, give them nuances and change. And partly by doing that and acting as the CIO for clients, that gave me a way of not hitting burnout over the years. But then we came to a new level where I had to bring in another VCIO to replace me. And then I kind of lost some of that. And then I felt like I was just on the challenge of getting more MRR, and I kind of got bored. It was, I started this when I was 16, and that was in 2021. And, I was, it had been 30 years almost. So, yeah. Wow.
So this may sound like a dumb question, but like, what did it feel like? How did you know? Because I know sometimes I'll have a bad day and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then the next day I'm like, this is great. And so there's we all have those things, but I'm kind of curious, like how did you know? Because sometimes I feel like the frog that's, slowly simmering and I don't know, the water's boiling.
Correct. I like having a lot of fun in life. Right. And I pair that up with, work and everything I do. And it got to the point where there was just many days where going to work, in the business wasn't as fun. I'm lucky where I loved what I did for most of my life. But when it got to the point where it was like, I'm just tired of one of my personal core values is don't lie, don't steal. Right. And I got tired of, in essence, some team members abusing and thinking, oh, it's okay to not do the right thing. And then it really impacts my mental health and my key leaders' mental health and my family. And at that point, I'm just I got to figure out a different way. I don't know if that answers your question, Damien.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is more, if I understand you, Dan, this is more than just sometimes or one time somebody made a mistake. This was somebody's doing something that just didn't align with the core value, your core value.
Yeah. And it happened multiple times. And so I kind of hit this straw that broke the camel's back kind of scenario, right? So I had to just identify that maybe it was time to make a larger change that, I had been talking about with some other peers. So
how long did you sit in it? Was that because I sit in it for far too long.
Oh, God. So, yeah, I have one of my other things is I'm too loyal. So it will cause me to sit in my pain longer because I keep my word, right?
Yeah.
Or so I don't want to say forces. It made me where I didn't always. I kind of looked the other way sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, I did sit in it a while. If you want me to go try to figure out the timeline for you, I can do that.
No, I just appreciate the candor because, when we're interviewing, we want to say the good things, right? And we will help people by that. But if I sit there and reflect, I go, man, I think they're going to improve because I care about people. I believe in them. And like you said, if it's one side or the other, I'm probably on the too loyal side. And it took me entirely too long to realize I've never regretted letting someone go. I've never enjoyed it, but I've never regretted it. And, when I reflect on that, I go, man, I've never done it too fast then, right? That means I'm usually on the other side of that.
I'd say kind of hand in hand with that, I have a saying where I've never fired anyone. And people look at me and go, what are you talking about? We had an agreement. You were going to do this. You were going to hold to some company core values that we agreed on. We agreed to things that might not sound normal, but I say them after every interview. If you ever lie to me, you will be fired, no matter who you are and what position you're doing. And if I talk about you more than my wife, you're fired. And they look at me and go, what are you talking about? Drama's expensive. So in my mind, if we keep to those rules, here's your job description, you do all this, and you put an honest effort in, then you'll have a job and a role with me and actually a career. I've made many careers with team members that still today are not on the team with me, but are friends of mine. And that's why I say I don't think I've ever fired anyone, because I've had plenty of people not adhere to what they agreed to. And I had to, for a long time, Damien, what helped me, I was just like, oh yeah, I got to deal with this. I got to deal with this. When I had kids and my son was about 6 years old, I had to put it into my head. I said, if somebody is not doing their job or they're not fulfilling what they're saying they agreed to, they are actually stealing from my kids' college fund. That was the way it worked in my head. So.
Yeah, it took me too long to frame it in a similar way, like taking food from my table, or if I really care about all the other team and they're trying to advance and they're trying to earn this next level, how can I allow somebody to take from my family, to take from my team? You mentioned kind of once the burnout was more clear, you needed to make a lot of changes. So I don't know what that looked like. Help me understand. Like you said that some people weren't doing things. I needed to pull a bunch of I'm kind of curious, what did that lead you to do?
So let's see, my son's 20. So I always do the calculation that way. 19 years ago, I joined a peer group from Robin Robbins. So back then she only had one employee. She didn't have peer groups quite yet. It was maybe about 18 and a half years ago she started it. And I joined in there and met several people in that peer group. At that time, she wasn't running smaller peer groups. It was one larger one, like 20 people. And I still am friends with many of the people in that peer group. Many of those guys and gals have sold their companies and moved on. But there's a few people in there we kind of splintered off and made our own. And one of the individuals in there was Tom Andrulis. Tom and I, we've worked together in a peer group type structure where we helped each other with business challenges we had all along the way. We've gone to the point where, we share different tools to try to help with expenses and so forth. So we might use one piece of software across both companies. And then we know everything about each other. Like we've been on family vacations, cruises and everything with our kids and wives and everything. So we are really, really good friends, and kind of joked around for a decade that we should maybe merge. And in 2020, Tom calls me and says, "Hey, I really think it's time for us to do a merger." And I was kind of hitting some of that burnout. And there was a balance. I was having fun. I was actually having fun, but it was, again, kind of monotonous, like we talked about earlier. So I said, okay, let's talk about it. And so we kind of, talked through that and came to the realization that if there was another peer, Rob. So Rob, Tom, and I did a three-way equal merger in 21. One of the reasons I did that was for my whole work life and owning the company, all the weight's been on my shoulders. Now it was divided across three pairs of shoulders, right? So, right. And everyone had their different strengths in their companies, and we kind of melded that together.
So besides like the financial components, those kind of things, I can totally relate to all that being on, like I'm in the same spot right now, right? It all is on my shoulders.
Yeah.
So I guess from a personal perspective, or sharing the load, like what were you hoping this would do for you?
Everyone has different superpowers, right? So there was one area that I always struggled at, which was more of the automation inside of accounting, the automation inside workflows in tasks. When it came to repetitive things that the team did, or repetitive things that we had to do on the accounting side, or whatever it might be. And that was an area that I was really looking forward to, that Tom had a really good strength in. On the security side, we were okay, but Rob's company was by far superior on the security side. And God, had some really amazing junior partners in there that are still on the team today. And just like, I thought I knew security. No, these guys are geniuses, and they're humble, and they're just good people.
Yeah. So most people struggle to make a merger work. Let alone a three-way and equal, right? That's the thing that really makes me raise my eyebrow, because most mergers of equals that are two-way, really there's somebody that's leading. It's really 51-49, not 50-50. And, they take this brand, they do this thing. And less about, I don't know, that is more that just, that seems incredibly, incredibly rare to be at a point where you guys, I'll just start to where you all felt like there was something approaching equal value. right? To do an equal merger, you guys had to have kind of somehow aligned of like, these companies must be somewhat equal. Either that or you're like, I just love these guys so much, I'm willing to, to give away a ton of value here.
No.
Well,
It was because we all had very similar EBITDAs. So at the time.
okay.
Yeah. So different revenues, right? But when it all shakes out, the EBITDAs were very similar.
So I want to double click on that part. I want to get a little deeper there. Okay. You just said something, and I think 5 years ago, our industry wasn't really talking about EBITDA, most people, and now hopefully we are. But you just said we had similar EBITDA but different revenues. What do you mean by that? For everybody that kind of just by.
So Tom and Rob they were closer to around 20%, between 18 and 22% of EBITDA percentage of their revenue, right? We were right around 5 million in revenue, and we were doing 34% EBITDA. Honestly, I mean, obviously, and a little bit of an anomaly in this industry.
Sure. That's definitely unheard of.
So, but it wasn't easy getting there, so, yeah. So
how, this is just super rare. How did you guys align? And I guess even how long did it take from, I know you and Tom were friends, and so you talked or joked maybe for years, but like once you guys started to have conversations, and then Rob, like how long did that take before you guys said, let's really make this happen? Was this years or months?
No. So we started discussing it in middle of 2020, and then a little bit later, and we made the decision that we were going to do it in early 21. We thought we would have it all done by June of 21. But lawyers love to be picky. And so, and I understand that they think they're doing the right thing, or they think they're just running up a bill. I don't know which one, but we got it finished in October of 21. So, yeah. And that really, part of the reason to do that was we had two paths. We did the merger and stay together, and keep growing and take our super strengths in there. We also had the option of bringing in some funding and helping with taking some of the chips off the table. And we did that because honestly, we've all built these companies over most of our life, and was our largest asset, right? So,
yeah.
So we made that choice and did that in May of 22. So
did you go into the merger, the three of you guys, with that, or was that like, after let's kind of change or think differently?
We went into the merger with that as our plan, but we also discussed if we did not feel comfortable or if some things didn't go right when it came to that, going to funding, we would just run the company and continue to grow it. So we already had a way that, I had done an acquisition in Detroit. Tom had done several different partnerships / acquisitions in different markets on his area. So there was a playbook to continue doing it. It was, but we went into it with knowing we could go either way.
Yeah. Yeah. Great to keep your options open.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear around the words private equity.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people that even if they do it, they want to maybe walk away because they're like, I don't know what they're going to do. And then I'm just going to be done. In your case, right, you said take some chips off the table and still be there, right? Not walk away. Yeah. So let me start with just what made you comfortable, for lack of a better way, to say this, because it's like a fourth partner, I would guess, right? It's a whole nother dynamic.
Yeah. I'd say it's more than a fourth partner. It's a new father.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably a better way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, We interviewed several different firms and narrowed it down to like two or three. And then from those, the one we settled on has become that's 22. So we're 3 years into it, and I don't regret it. I think we definitely picked the right partner. I know there's a lot of fear around private equity and so forth. But if you find the right partner, what my experience has been is they encourage us to run the company the way we should have always run it. So
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's by like, okay, you have X amount of revenue and you create a budget for the year. And part of your budget is you have to sell, I'll just random number, say $10,000 a month in MRRs. Ours is much higher than that now, that we have to sell each month. But, with that, then you build a budget around that. And then if you fall off budget and you don't sell enough, then you have to make adjustments. You don't wait until, which a lot of times, like I had done that many years ago, or I have lots of friends that do it, where you kind of wait until you're like, yeah, I'm at 22% EBITDA, but I know this isn't, I know I'm going to get there. And then you don't make any changes until you're at 10% EBITDA. And it's almost too late to make meaningful changes because you're in panic mode. They encourage and give us the data to go, hey, you're slipping here. You got to make a minor tweak before we fall off the rails. And so I actually appreciate that. And it's running a company is created for what reason? A company is created to provide jobs for people. For me, it's a way to support hundreds of families that are team members. And it's the purpose of a company is to generate money and to generate profits. That's the point of a company. We are not a nonprofit. So, they help you stay to those guardrails. So.
You used an interesting word. You said interview. You said you interviewed different private equity groups, firms to work with. Why that word?
Because I think, again, we went into it with the mindset that we didn't have to do it. But it was no different than, when you're dating, right? It's no different than dating. You're in essence interviewing who you might spend the rest of your life with, right? So, I joke with Tom about it before, because he know me better than Rob, and Rob and I get along great. But I'd be like, Tom, you sure you want to partner with me? You know who you're marrying, right? And he'd just laugh. I'd be like, dude, it's a marriage, right? You know what you're getting. So that's why, like, when we did the merger, it was very easy for me. I don't have much ego in life. It's about what's the best thing and the best step for either the business or personal life. And for Tom, he's just way more even keeled than me. So we made him the CEO. It just made sense. I'm the more like quick start, a little bit more like get going quick, crazier ideas that sometimes work out, right? So it's that balance. So yeah, that's why, like I said, the interview, like we had to make sure from what we gathered during interviewing and everything that we felt comfortable with them. And we did. They're still a good culture fit today. I'm a t-shirt and shorts guy, and those guys, I walk into the board meeting and I'm wearing a Guns N' Roses t-shirt and shorts, and they don't care. And the managing partner, one day he comes in the next day for the second day of the board meeting, and he's wearing a rock shirt, and it's like, this is great. And I'm talking about a guy that's like in his late 50s or early 60s, like late 50s, I think he is. So you got to find your tribe, right? And the best you can. So
yeah. I love that you said culture, because I think it's easy to miss that.
Mm-hmm.
And my point is, everybody, I think, realizes you got to focus on that with your team, but it's easy to miss that when you're talking about, partnering with another firm and finding your tribe, right? That's because the money aside, like I've seen people do it well and I've seen people do it poorly and go, this is not my tribe. I didn't think about it. I just, I've definitely seen people take the highest bid, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah, we did not. Yep.
I also love how you framed it as interviewing, because, this is not your words, but I think my thought is great companies are bought, not sold. And I feel like, you're like, we could, like, by interviewing that connotes to me that you're like, we have a choice who we select.
Yeah.
Instead of the company's for sale, I got to sell it in the next quarter or two. Yeah. And, I've got it all propped up and, I've done all this work and, and look, if you're anybody going through it, like it is a ton of work. So I get where you can get deal fatigue and it can be its own source of burnout, but, you didn't miss the piece that was entirely optional.
Correct. You hit on a key point there. If somebody's watching this and they're going through this process, we today acquire MSPs, and that's not why I'm saying this. What I'm seeing is when we're talking to somebody, they take the gas, their foot off the gas pedal, and then they're focusing on everything for the possible acquisition of their company, and then they reduce sales, and it hurts them. They gotta keep going, which means extra work, but we had to do it too. We had to keep hustling. We had to go through all this due diligence and all this other stuff and keep the foot down on the pedal. And, and I think that was a point in my life where I said to my wife, Pamela, I said, hey, it's not going to be great right now because it's double work. But the plan is we're trying to get to the other side. Right. So just for what it's worth to everyone out there.
No, I think that's great advice. And, I love your thoughts maybe on this, Dan. What I think that can lead to burnout. I think that you can tell your wife that, and then it takes longer. I know some people you have shorter and longer, and I've had others that have ended up dealing with people that get to kind of to the altar, but they keep dragging it out. They keep throwing in some new terms or changing the terms. So, there can be deals where it's just like it keeps going on seemingly forever. So what are your thoughts on, putting a constraint around that? Like, I'm going to do double the work, but this is for this season, and the season has to end so that I can continue.
I'd say a couple things is make sure to leverage, first of all, in my experience, whoever's your right-hand person in the company, hopefully what I had done is gave them phantom stock, and hopefully then you have somebody that can assist you on that journey, that would have skin in the game too, but also lean a lot on professional advisors. And what I mean by that is like, you can go out and people will call you and you can talk to them and they'll be like, hey, we want to buy your company. And there's truth to that. That does work in some areas, and we still do it today, and it works. But if you were able to do it the way we had done it, where we became the platform company, where we're the main one and we're doing the bolt-ons, it was invaluable to have a investment banker, which to me is just a broker for businesses. But they took a lot of the burden off for us. They guided us a lot because obviously the more they got for us, the more they made. So, and they actually shared in some of the expenses along the way that normally we would have incurred on ourselves. So, I think I answered your question, but I feel like there's one thing I'm missing in my brain. So does there anything come to mind, Damien?
No, I think it's just, I don't know what your experience was. It sounded like it was a really good one, but this, in my experience, most people have not gone through this, and due
Yeah,
diligence are not my favorite words.
correct.
And like you said, you've got, I don't know, the way I
Oh,
would frame this, almost like you've just served two masters.
yeah, you do. It came to my head now. What you had
Yeah.
said is like dragging it out and changing the rules, or
Yeah.
requesting more information. Um, I think to me that's a red flag, right? You should have a clear list of what you need ahead of time, and you have milestones, and you get to those milestones. That's what our experience is. But I'd say on the flip side, you as the owner, which I have experienced this, we had one friend that I've been friends with for at least a decade in the industry, really good guy, ran a really good business, and he drug it out. And then in turn, and he took his foot off the pedal, and it hurt his evaluation, and he didn't end up joining us, and he ended up going a different way. And we're still friends, and I wish him the best. But it's just like you said, hey, they keep changing some of the rules. Well, sometimes in the nature of some of a lot of IT guys, right? They're not quick starts. They're so they don't want to make that decision. So that's tough. So like realize it can be both sides that screw it up. Even though you want to tell yourself it's the other side, sometimes it's us, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I want to kind of dig a little deeper because you went through two journeys pretty quickly, right? You had a 20 something years, I suppose, like, and I imagine being 16 all the way till the year that you guys became the three-way merger, all those years, you probably inevitably had a lot of identity wrapped into what you do in this business.
Oh, for sure.
So even to go to the three-way merger, you had to get to a different frame of mind to say, this is not just my kingdom or fiefdom or whatever. Like now I am part of this. And, you know, I have, because the truth is you didn't have any equals in the business, right?
No.
You might have people that are better than you in areas, but like you were the one that could make that determination. Now you have a three-way, set of equals. So even in making that step, like what did you feel like you needed to be prepared for to change? Because the reason I'm bringing this up is when you brought up us IT guys, yes, we can overthink things, but I also think one of those things is like, but I'm always used to making every decision.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to share? And who am I if I'm not that?
Yeah. I think, okay, so for many years, I thought that I would build this company, I would sell it to my kids, and let it move on and continue to generate, income for them. I don't know, I never thought of it back then. I never thought of it as generating wealth, right? But that's in essence what it has done. I came to a realization as I worked with clients over the years. I'm in Metro Detroit area, and there's a lot of manufacturing companies, and there's a lot of auto dealers, and there's a lot of different businesses that are what I would say generational businesses. So businesses that are now run by the second and third generation. And my experience is the majority of them I found not to be happy or thrilled about what they were doing. And what I mean is, I have a friend now and his old client, and he's in this fourth generation. It's a fourth generation business. And, he feels indebted to some of his, previous generations and so forth. He actually is happy and has fun with his business, but I've seen so many guys that are not happy in the business. And I think, so I came to a realization, I go, I don't want to put that on my kids. I don't want to force them to be in a company that they didn't start. I am happy to, help them and invest in them in the future if they want to start their own thing. If they want to go work somewhere, if they want to go, work for Parks and Rec, I don't care as long as they're happy, but So so there was a realization probably 5 or 8 years ago where I go, okay, I'm not going to keep this company. So so when an opportunity knocked and it was with somebody that I trusted indefinitely, there was no, and I always, I've been on stage before talking to friends and peers, just like sharing experiences and so forth. And I think too many people are working constantly and forgetting that there needs to be an exit, or there needs to be a plan for how you're going to finish and retire, because
Yes.
what are we doing this for? I started this just because I was a little bit trying to do new things and be my own, like, control my own destiny in a way, but I didn't. But you get to a point where it's like, I actually think that everyone, I have many friends that own businesses, and they go, I really like what I do, Dan. And I go, I like what I do too. I said, but do you think there's a chance that because you owned your company for 20 years, that maybe your brain thinks you like it because you only know this? So it's like I break the mold, and we go through this transition, and I got to get to this point where I need to get to the next chapter. So,
yeah. Well, that leads me to and I think that was great what you just said there, but it leads me to the next part, because there's partnering with two others. And so, no matter how great they are, and I'm sure they are, you're going to have differences of opinion, right?
Well,
so you're now no longer the sole decision maker.
But they aren't either.
And they aren't either, right? So that, maybe if all the people get their way none of the time, then maybe that makes sense. But I think even it can be easier to struggle, at least in my opinion, when you go and say, we're going to take all these, or not all, but a lot of the chips off the table with this private equity partner, and forgetting, I know private equity strikes its own fear in certain people, but my point is, in any deal where you're saying, we're going to basically hand over who gets to decide, like you said, more of a, I don't know what you would say. Maybe you guys were like three brothers or something like that, but you went and found a new father, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very different relationship. Was there any point in that time where that you went, I got to see my identity outside of what I do? Or had the years you had been doing, thinking I'm going to exit, prepared you for that?
So in my scenario, I had already been exploring changing our branding, because, our name back then was PC Miracles. It was a name I created when I was 16. It wasn't really, it didn't, I don't know, it wasn't like fancy or anything, like, right? So and it was like, oh, maybe we should change our brand. So that helped. I think the other thing was, again, kind of going back to the thought process of removing some of the stress off my shoulders, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it was just, sometimes in life that you can't explain it, but sometimes there's just good timing, right? So, and you got to just take risk. I mean, that's what we've done when we start companies. It's risk. So selling it or merging it or everything is just a new chapter of risk.
Yes.
So, and you just got to put, protections in there. And I think that's why we thought we would be done with our merger in June of 21, and it went to October. There was like, oh, we need this nuance in there. Or, we were like, hey, we got to write it in there where, if I pass away, then my wife doesn't get controlling her. She just, then it was spelled out that if that happened, then there was a whole process already written on how we did the value of the company, and they would get paid out shares and everything. We went through so many scenarios. And so I guess in that, by going through that, so many scenarios and not trying to rush the process, that did help bring a lot of ease to my mind. And I think all three of our minds.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's risk, like you just said, in merging. There's risk in, I don't know if you want to call it a merger, but this, private equity taking a stake.
Yeah.
There's also de-risking,
Correct.
right? And we work for so long, and you don't know what tomorrow brings, right? So, I think I don't know, what I've started to learn is if I can get over my ego, and I don't think I have a huge one, but still, it's like, I'm used to, I would say more identity. Like this is what I do. And it's not that I stopped doing it, but I'm no longer like, I want to carry less of the weight, like you said. But there's sometimes where I still want to have that decision making. And if I can get past that, it's like, wow, now there's really savvy people that were never going to be part of your team before that are now on your team. There's so much more you guys can do. There's the group that you partnered with probably has a whole different view of business and the maturity of it.
Yes.
And so, and you're sitting there not going, well, one day I've got to sell, right? You've, right, to just say this directly, you've captured upside so that you've really, like, individually, it sounds like de-risked, but you still have a stake. So that upside, correct, you still get to keep the upside.
Yep. We got de-risk. So we got some upside on the beginning, and we still share in the upside on the second part. I mean, that's why, and I think it's important, if you do this, you need to identify with yourself what role you're going to be in and if you are going to stay on or not. I think that helped with my mental health. I wanted to stay on because, like we talked about before, kind of burnout and kind of getting bored in something. This is a whole new chapter, right? Like, there's so many things I've learned, so many things I never even thought I'd know because of going through this with private equity. And it's just like, there's part of me is like, I wish I knew about this like 10 years ago, right? Then I would do things differently, but I don't regret anything, right? Like, but you just, it's like, it's going to sound funny, but like, I loved racing cars, and I found out about a place in local to me here, where there's a racetrack where you buy a garage and I don't golf. That's my golf. And we found out about it about 9 years ago, me and some friends. But the thing has existed for like 13 years. And I'm like, God, I wish I knew about it sooner, right? Because I would have been able to buy it at a better price and da-da-da-da-da. So, but I still don't regret it, right? So it's just like, it's the same thing, right? I say I regret not knowing about private equity earlier, but I probably really don't.
So I want to talk a little bit about your journey to, and your message to others around spend time with your family.
Okay.
I imagine when you started at 16 and 17, 18, 19, 20, it's somewhere there, it was probably just whatever it took. Grow as fast as you can.
Yeah.
What caused you to say, I've got to change the hours. I've got to reprioritize things.
So for me and my wife, we wanted to have 4 kids. We found that we had to go through in vitro. So it was difficult, and we really wanted these kids if we were going to go through IVF. Yeah. And so we wanted to have kids at around 24, 25, but it didn't work out. We had to, our son was born when I was 27. My thing is wanting to make sure to raise them as good humans and good people in with their family and friends and everything. And I think everything that I've seen, learned, heard was the best way to do that was to spend time with your kids, right? Pretty easy, but hard in this country at times, and hard, especially if you own a company. So, Max was 1 year old, maybe 1.5. and we ran the company out of our house, right? We ran it out of the basement, and Max would stand at the top of the stairs and yell, "Dad, Dad, Dad." And I was like, okay, I know I got to move to another office. So we fix that. And, but part of it was it's funny. I said to Pamela, I said, "Hey, I'm going to work a lot before Max is born, right?" Well, we didn't have his name yet, but anyways, before the baby's born, I'm going to work a lot so I don't have to work as much after, right? Yeah. And then, well, that didn't
I
quite
remember
work out.
those words too.
Yeah, that didn't quite work out. But the thing that I did always hold to, if I wasn't traveling for business or a conference, which actually wasn't very much back then in my late 20s, it was maybe once a quarter, so not a big deal, was 5:30, 6 o'clock. If there was no client like down emergency, which obviously maybe happened once every couple months, so you live through that, we'd have dinner and we'd spend time as a family. And so, and got to the point where I did not work from after dinner until the kids went to bed, when obviously later we had Caitlin, but when Max was first one. And after that, then Pamela knew, hey, if you got to work, you got to do some work after Max is in bed. That's great. So I've done that all of my life. My kids are now 20 and 15. And we still have fun. Like most nights, my daughter and I will either play basketball if it's nice here in Michigan, or we'll build Legos. I'm big into doing things with Legos because it gets you off a screen. I think it gives you a different viewpoint on how to solve different problems. We play a lot of games. It could be literally anything, but it's just making a concerted effort to spend time together. When they become a teenager, which it can be difficult, but it's still so awesome when my daughter says, "What are we doing today?" And she's 15. She's almost 16. She's like, "What are we doing today?" Like that. Yeah. Like, so we did something right. And based on my journey, I still came out fine on the other side, right? Spending the time with the family, right? So, yeah.
So you were working all the time, and then you realized, this is what I really want. These are my family values. What changed? How did you make that? The business and all the things and all the demands and all the pressure. Like what changed in you that allowed you to make that change?
You mean other than realizing that I just needed to spend time with my kids, or what do you give me?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it's easy to say that, and then it's hard to, for most people to say, I'm just going to stop at 5:30 or whatever, and even picking the time and how, and then, did you just decide one day and it was as simple as that? What was it that helped you make that change? From what I'm gathering was probably the more typical American business owner, workaholic type of, mind to like, just going to be thinking about Legos. Yeah. And having dinner with my family at 5:30.
I think part of it too was, I have squirrel syndrome, like many of us, right? Oh, get distracted here. So I learned that I had to train myself to live by a calendar of either client interactions, employee interactions, or tasks. And if so by doing, and like, I still, even today, Damien, I'll set an alarm on my phone. Like, I'll be like, I got to do this at 9:30 at night when my daughter's in bed, right? So I'll set an alarm, and I kind of do it that way. The other thing, I guess, is I never gave my clients, I shouldn't say never. I should not say never. I did before, but I learned a long, long time ago, I can't give them instant gratification. So I would on purpose not answer my cell phone. I would on purpose, and don't get me wrong, if it was a number I didn't know, because I love sales, I would answer it, right? Because it could be a prospect. But if it was a client, and I was doing something for another client, or I was doing something family related, I would intentionally not answer the phone. And some speaker told me this like 15 years ago, you got to train your clients. So I would intentionally, so many people love to reply to emails very quickly. And then the clients expect you to reply. And then guess what? They get upset if you don't reply very quickly and you're on vacation. So you have to, then I added an admin. So like I added an admin 9 years ago or 8 years ago that would read my email and say, Dan, she would send me a Slack. Now we're on Teams, but she would send me a Slack back then. You got to take care of this one right now. And it allowed me to ignore the rest of the noise so that after the kids were in bed, I could go through that non-important, non-urgent email. So
that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I remember having my first executive assistant changed the focus so much.
Amazing. Yeah.
And I think as a technology business owner, I had this crazy viewpoint of like, I don't need somebody to type my emails or, like I can do these things, but the focus and the gain of clarity was just life-changing.
Yeah. And by you doing administrative tasks, you're not doing service for your clients and you're not doing service for your family.
Yes. Yeah. And a coach of mine said, you can't build $1 million business on $10 tasks.
No, you cannot.
So you got to get out of this. I want to talk a little bit about PC Miracles. Can you give us some idea of like, where did you get, how big was that? And then when you guys merged, what it was that? And then where are you now? Like, what do you want to talk about revenue or employees, but pretty dramatic changes here.
Yeah. So 14 years ago, the reason I know this number is because that's when I joined EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and you have to report your revenue. So I joined in the smaller group called Accelerator. We had 453,000 of revenue, and then grew over time. And then that's 14. So then it was just right around 10 years ago that we hit $1 million in revenue. And then over the years grew. And like you had said earlier in the interview, in 2020, we were doing roughly $5 million in revenue. And then through the merger.
Before the merger.
Yeah. So, and then the merger allowed the three of us to come together. We were at 22 million in revenue, the three of us together. And today we're right around 55 million in revenue. So a lot of change in a short amount of time.
Pre-merger at your peak, PC Miracles, about how many people were there?
It's funny you asked that. So when I was 3 million, I had 33 people. Then John and Megan joined my team, and we were at 5 million revenue, and I had 22 people.
Okay. So let's just take that one for a second. 22 and that has its own, I want to ask you about that, but let's just take the 22 for a second. And then today, about how many folks do you have?
360.
So help me understand that time frame. When was 22 people right before merger?
So Tom and Rob and all together, once we did the merger, we were about 120 people.
So we're talking right now 25, and I'm just trying to figure out how many years it was that you were 22 people. How many years ago was that?
Oh, that was 5 years ago.
So 5 years, you got from 22 to 386.
Yeah, 360-ish or whatever.
360.
We're somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard number to fathom, right? And what struck me about our conversation earlier ago is you were talking about 10 years ago, you were around 1 million, and so what I love about that is 453,000 or 1 million or wherever you are, like we all struggle.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's so many people that I don't know how to get there. What I'm seeing in your story was this ability to continue to change your mindset and look at things differently and say, what got me to 500,000 may not be what gets me to 1 million. And what got me to 1 million won't get me to 2 or 3.
Yep.
And at 5 million to not, there's a lot of people when they get to, let's say 5 million and say, I'm the king of the world and I've clearly figured it all out. I'm going to kind of settle and be comfortable there. So speaking of that, you said you joined EO.
Yep.
You're like 453,000 in revenue. That strikes me as fairly small headcount wise to be joining EO. And what I mean by that is that's amazing. But I feel like most people like me are far more stubborn. Before I invest in coaching and in a peer group and things like that. So what drove you to join something like EO kind of so early?
So accelerator is like you had to be 250,000 to $1 million in revenue, and then EO is $1 million and up, right? So you kind of graduate. Yep. So
just for context, I didn't know. I was only past $1 million when finally somebody's like, you should join EO. And I'm like, what's EO? And then they're like, well, you qualify for that group. And I was like, I didn't even know about it. So that's why I'm curious.
Like, there's a smaller group. So I call it the feeder group. So I had actually, once I graduated to EO, I went on the board and I ran that accelerator group in Detroit for 3 years. So to kind of give back to that. So, I'd say I went to college, but I dropped out of college. I'm not built for college, but I love learning. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, being in the peer group, in Robin Robbins, she always brings in great speakers and they would give me new nuggets and new ways to think. And, in Clarkston, Michigan, I don't know how many years before, but we have a Clarkston Lions Club kind of fizzled out. Somebody was trying to bring it back. So I became one of the founding members of Clarkston Lions Club. I love that organization. It's been great. It's one of the only ones that 100% of the money that gets donated goes back out. And I can go into that. Another reason, like that helped me with my kids and teaching them like that we have to give back. But the reason I tell you that story is I was at a charity function that we were putting on. It was like a poker night at a bar, and the bar had to have a charity to run it so that, that it was legal. Right. So we were there running the table, and I was talking to one of the members. His name's Brace Case, super nice guy. And, he's like, Dan, what do you do? And we had been members together for years, and we had a couple hours together, and he goes, you should talk to my son, Darton. He's been the president of this organization. It's like EO something, EO whatever. I'm like, okay, I'll talk to Darton. So Darton invited me to an event, and because of my experience with watching other coaches and speakers and so forth, I felt it was like a next journey. And you know what? I've always been one to kind of try something, even if it's not 100%, because you can always change path later. I'm a very big believer in taking opportunity when it comes around. It's happened to me many times, and it doesn't always feel right, or it's scary. But when you take it, and there's the term I have called realize the ripple. You just have to realize sometimes the ripple works out. So,
I want to talk a little bit about this best in class EBITDA. So
what is it again? Sorry.
I want to talk about your EBITDA, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're just this complete outlier. So tell me about before the merger, I think was maybe what your peak EBITDA was, what you guys were running at.
34%. Yeah.
So 5 million, you have 34% EBITDA, something near that. That's, if you're not aware when you're listening, that's just crazy. The other thing, and perhaps related, but I wanted to talk about, before we even talk about the EBITDA, is so many of us, we just keep paying it forward into the business. We reinvest into this, we reinvest into that, and we really don't pay ourselves well. And there is putting your team first, which I get, and then there is just really not taking any chips off the table is probably the wrong word, but just not paying yourself enough. You managed to run a business that had the EBITDA and paid yourself well. And my point is, I think most of us MSPs need to hear this. So why was that important to you? Instead of like, you could have bet year over year, year and just plowed most or all that money back into growth. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have, you could have paid yourself far less, but you had the EBITDA and you actually did that. So why did you?
If I really wanted to run it really slim, I could have done probably 40%. I did reinvest in the business, but I think it's a balancing act on reinvesting. I think, it's funny how somebody makes a big change in your life and they don't realize it. But again, another speaker at Robin Robbins told us years ago, you gotta put away some of the money for yourself along the way. Yeah. You gotta make sure that to protect yourself. And thank God I did, because like there's been scenarios where there was years I made the least amount of money of any employee in the company because shit just went wrong. And and thank God I had that cushion, right? So I think part of it too is balanced investing. So I think some people can go, again, I think some people run and chase after revenue when you should be really, like my experience is chasing after profit, right? And being okay, there was a lot of period of time where I felt bad that I made good money, and I was like, and I'd pay people more and everything, and it was just, I think it's just some of the head trash that you're like, but then you have to remember you're the crazy one that put everything on the line, or in this year you lost everything, and this year you gambled it all and it worked. And I think that's, you look at it, it's like a 15, 20 year payout, if that makes sense, right? Until you really get what you should be making. Now, with that said, when I was 1 million in revenue, I still was taking home 20% at least. And
that's crazy.
And
that's crazy good.
Yeah.
The number of entrepreneurs, I think I want to unpack two things real quick. The number of entrepreneurs that could run a business with a good enough EBITDA at $1 million to take home somewhere near 200,000 or around there. That's exceptional EBITDA, and it especially hard at that size. And then you have a whole second set of people like me. They're like, well, but I'm just going to hire this other person, or I'm going to do this. And all of a sudden, that goes in half, or that gets, cut by a third or whatever that is, because I can, I'm justifying it in one way or another, but you're not, like you said, like your name's on that line of credit. You're backing this. You're putting you and your livelihood and your family on the line. And so, I'm asking this, and I'm also kind of confessing this. It's like, I've done that. Yeah. So, to do that at $1 million is amazing.
Yeah. And then maybe at 1.5 million, I was doing maybe 12%, right? Because I did reinvest a little bit too much. I actually remember the dip down to the low teens, and it was scary. So, I don't know. I think it goes back to kind of my dad being from Poland. He always said, you pay cash for everything, Danny. You just, that's what you got to do. And so I literally didn't have lines of credit. So I had to build a cushion. Otherwise, there was nothing. Like at one point I did get a line of credit because somebody told me I should, and then I never used it. So that was great. But, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that caving to pressure, or was that good? Did that give you some, like, even if you didn't use it, did that give you some license to maybe invest more or feel more comfortable with risk?
It gave me a little bit more comfort. Yeah. Because I really lived a lot of the time where there was what I had in the bank, and that was it. So, I think maybe that's part of it. I see a lot of friends running on lines of credit and stuff, and if you're out there and you're one of my friends and you're hearing me say this, sorry, but so many people, it's like running on a margin call when you come to stocks, right? People think, oh, well, I got to get this line of credit so I can, grow the company and so forth. And there's truth to that at certain areas. And maybe you're in a business that requires it where you have to buy equipment, but an MSP doesn't really have to buy a lot of expensive equipment, right? So
Right.
I have a friend that I look up to who has done very well in a software company. And I find out last year, he's like, Dan, I can't do XYZ because my bank wants to make me pay off my line of credit. And I'm in this entire time thinking for the last decade, I never even thought you would even have a line of credit the way you run your business. We're all taught differently. So
I think you're more of an outlier than you may realize there, which is amazing. But this is what I want, everybody listening to take away. It's like before Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile, everybody said it was not something humans could do. And so my point is, if you're listening, you see Dan never took from the line of credit, right? The other thing I want to try to understand more is like, how did you take 200,000 home at $1 million? How did you end up at a 34% EBITDA? I'm really driving at the EBITDA like that is just kind of unheard of.
I'll tell you how. I love sales. I love helping people. I go into any interaction in my life, and my goal is to, if it's say a prospect back in the day that would reach out to me, even if they would say to me, this is my business challenge. If I couldn't do it, I would refer them to somebody. I really enjoyed it. But I think getting in front of people and not being afraid to do sales, which a lot of our peers do not like sales. I know a lot of my peers are not extroverts, right? And I'm lucky that way, where I am an extrovert who understands the technology. So I think that's what's changed. That's part of it. Now, there's friends that are like not extroverts and say, I'm going to hire a salesperson. I have seen that go the wrong way. And what I have done based on like my recommendation and my experiences, I might be the one that's outgoing and stuff, but on the flip side, I'm really bad at the details. So I would bring a salesperson with me on every call, and they would take all the notes. They would do all the follow-ups and so forth. But I have other friends that are not the extrovert, and they are the detailed one. They can bring a salesperson with them that is more extroverted, and they can be the one there about the details, right? It can be, I'm really team selling, team approach helped me a lot. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on. So, but sales cures everything. Sales cures everything.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And it has to be the right sales, Damien. You can't sell crack. So you have to sell at the right seat price. You have to believe that you're picking a company that you're going to partner with. Because when you pick a client, I believe you are partnering with them, because our average retention is like 8 to 9 years. So I got to date you for 8 to 9 years, and I have to like you. And if I don't like you, then I've done this before where I've had clients that have just been really rude to my employees. I've had a discussion with them and they still continued. And so I remember one client, and I said to the team, when we hit 75,000 in MRR, this is many years ago, we're going to fire XYZ client. And once we hit that, everyone was, and that made the team, and they were so, Dan, go sell more. Yes, we're psyched for it. Because once we hit that number, we're firing them. And it was free. And I kept my word to my team. It was awesome.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because sometimes you can't afford to fire them, but
Correct.
setting that number, right? This is the number, and getting aligned on that is huge.
And we were 67,000 in MRR. We couldn't afford to fire them. We could not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If we did, I probably have to ask somebody to leave the team, and because they were a larger amount of MRR, that's why.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah. I love that though. But instead of giving up and saying we can't fire them and tolerating being rude or, maybe almost abusive to your team, like you said, this is not okay, but here's what we got to do to achieve it. Because I think it's easy to live in fantasy land where you say, I don't tolerate abuse and we just fire clients. And then you're like, how are we going to make payroll after that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
now,
I didn't realize I did it, but I gamified it, right?
Yeah. I love that. Now, I'm not going to let you off the hook that easy because you said like it's sales and sales cures all. And, you did come back and say the right per seat cost, but you also said like, hey, I'm not as much the detail orientation.
Yeah.
My point is sales and especially the right seat can cure all, but you've got to run pretty, correct me if I'm wrong, you got to run pretty operationally mature to achieve that kind of EBITDA. Because you can just sell. In fact, in my experience, sometimes if we grow faster than we've ever grown, we actually drop EBITDA precipitously.
Yeah.
Because we're making hires faster and maybe we've gotten a little sloppy and processes not keeping up with that new level of growth. So, as the guy that's like, oh, I sell, but I'm not as I'm not as detail, I should say, oriented. Yeah, but something that connected more. To me, there had to be some incredible process and maturity around that to actually execute on that level of EBITDA. Because again, like you said, revenue is great.
Correct.
It's not profit.
Correct. So where that came in for me was I had to ask operations manager to leave the company for extreme reasons. And then I hired John and Megan. Megan was actually at a client of mine. She was the second in command. And I'm not going to get into details. I'm happy to share anything about that. There's no secrets there. But I had already known her. I know her level of detail. So she joined the team. And so we were working, we were selling, sold quite a bit of MRR, had increased the company dramatically. That's kind of back to the story where I told you I think I said it was like around 3 million in revenue and like 34 people. I think we were doing like 8 or 9% EBITDA. It wasn't great. Okay.
Yeah.
And, I had joined another organization years before called True Methods with Gary Pica. But Gary, when he did it, was all sales focused. It had bubbled back up to me that he had integrated operations into it. I was in Taylor Business Group, and it always drove me nuts in Taylor Business Group. They would just tell me, hey, you gotta pay yourself this, and you gotta go for this profitability, and they didn't really always tell us exactly how. So I went down the path of, I had some friends that, again, all ties back to Robin, a friend of mine that I've still incredibly good friends with today, Jerry, that I met in there, and he was in True Methods, and he was doing very well. He was doing 24% EBITDA. And I'm like, Jerry, do you think I should join? And he's like, yeah. So I get in there and really adopted and brought in the alignment engineer process. That's what saved my ass. And the person that could execute that was Megan and John. So to your point, that really on the back end is where it came in. The other thing was, like I said, we were 8 or 9% EBITDA. I went to my first meeting, and Gary had known me from before, from industry stuff, and then canceling with him and then rejoining. And Gary, he goes, looking at my numbers in front of me, and Megan's there, he goes, you won't be around in a year. You're at 8%. You won't be around.
Yeah.
I go,
how's that for some harsh truth there?
I go, really? Okay. Challenge on.
Yeah.
So, and him and I are friends now, and we text each other, and yeah, it's been a good journey, but basically that was the operating system that gave the operations side the structure that you said that can allow and enable that higher percentage of EBITDA, right? So,
was one of them using EOS language? Did they become your integrator?
Megan was my integrator.
Okay.
She was 100% my integrator. Yeah. So,
the difference between having and not having that is
massive,
huge.
Massive. Yeah. Yeah. Before that, I had an operations manager. He was not an integrator. So, but that level of detail, has been great. The funny thing is, when Megan started working for me, we actually did not like each other. We found out it just didn't work, but we worked together. And then like 6 months in, we kind of clicked and just started hitting our stride. So, yeah.
Dan, what's the biggest lesson you've learned in all your years in business?
Oh, biggest lesson. I would say biggest lesson is change is required along the way, right? So try different changes, pivot, A/B test things. And I'm not talking marketing, I'm talking inside the company, right? Try different things. Yeah, I think that covers it.
Well, can you give me an example? What's something you ended up needing to A/B test and that made a difference?
I think you and I talked about it earlier. One thing was adding the communication policy. It sounds simple, but it was, hey, putting this in place to set guardrails on team members and on expectations on communications. That was one thing. We didn't realize how much of a big impact that would make, but it really did. Never got upset at somebody using the wrong form of communication. Just back to EOS, I'm a big guy where it's like, when you toggle, when you change and you get distracted with things, it can cost you a lot of time. So I'm a big believer in, hey, Ben did this wrong. I'm not going to go and type to Ben right now. I'm going to add it to IDS for my meeting that I have weekly with, what department Ben is in. And then it gets to the point now where I just go on my phone and I don't even send it in. I send it to my admin. And I say, hey, send this to IDS on this team, blah, blah, blah. And so I increase the speed of getting information out of my brain. So through an admin, right? So.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, another great thing was having my admin read all my emails and on my calendar. So you and your team, I didn't schedule this, right? She did. She did everything. So
yeah. No,
so yesterday, sorry, Damien. Yesterday, I look at this is what I do every night. I go, oh, what am I doing tomorrow?
Yeah,
on my calendar.
I'm the same way. It runs by the calendar, and to me, it's freeing. And it's freeing. And I had no idea how much distraction email was causing.
Correct. And text messaging is bad. So I flipped this thing over. That would drive Megan nuts and John nuts for years. I'd be in a meeting. I will not look at the text.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you an hour to respond. Yeah, I'm busy doing something else with a prospect or a client.
Well, just like you teach your clients, you teach your employees. Correct.
Yeah.
It's taken me too long, and I'm going to actually take your advice and codify this because it's not actually written, but it's like we've all discussed like the messaging. Don't respond in real time. Respond once a day. But then, like kind of like you said, even texts generally, it's funny because even I'll be on something for my kids or something else, and people text and they expect immediate replies, and I'm like, I kind of treat text like my inbox of email or other messages like once a day. I'll come through every once in a while, like if I happen to be available, maybe, but like there's no promise, and because I try to teach everybody, it's like if it's urgent, call.
Correct.
Right. Correct. And otherwise, it's like I'll process that yet another inbox, if you will.
Yes.
If there's one thing you could do differently or do over, what would that be?
I wouldn't change anything. And here's why. My favorite movie is called Family Man with Nicolas Cage. And this is kind of where I learned that phrase I used with you earlier, and I used it with the team for years, for over a decade, realize the ripple. You look at that movie and you go, oh, it could have took this path or this path, right? And they're very dramatically different. One is where he got all the money and no family, and one he got family and he still did decent with money, right? And so I wouldn't change anything. There's been so many things in life where I didn't want to do it, but I was highly encouraged. I was going through divorce and I was down and I was not happy, and I got married early, in my early 20s. And my friends forced me a couple months after. They said, Dan, we're going to the bar. You are going with us. And I did not want to go, and they forced me. And thank God they forced me, because I met my wife. So, and we've been together. December will be 25 years. So, wow. So I don't regret anything. Like there's been challenges where, I referenced the operations manager before Megan and John. I didn't inspect what I expected, which is what EOS teaches you, even though we were loosely running EOS. And Steve at the time would, say, this is good. And we were cranking out sales, but I didn't, and thought everything was fine on the operational side. And then come to find out that he's having consensual sex with a woman that's a technician. And then I fire that tech, not knowing that. And she sues the company and cost me over $250,000. Right.
Wow.
But I wouldn't change that, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have been forced to quickly hire John and Megan. I don't know how to explain that. Right. So there's nothing I would have changed, really. So it maybe sounds not right, but it's true, because I really realized the path goes a way you could never predict.
Yeah. Shaping you to be who you need to be.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in Detroit. We went to the auto show. I was a kid that had BMWs, Lamborghinis, and everything on my wall, the posters, right? And dreamt and thought I'd never have these things. And then look at me now. So, right. So, I don't regret anything. I wouldn't change anything.
Mm-hmm. What's something you're looking forward to right now in your season of business and life, and just all the opportunities and things going on?
I accidentally in 2016 came up with a new tradition. So I bought one of my first sports cars from Tom when we were friends. I flew out to Vegas, picked it up with my son. He was 11 at the time, and we cross-countryed it back. Ever since then, I do a individual road trip with each of my kids every year. So I'm really looking forward to that this year. So last year I took my son to F1 Miami. And then last year my daughter
and you drove there. That's a pretty good drive.
No,
from
that
Michigan.
one we flew to. That one.
Okay. I was going to say that's a long drive.
That one we flew. So I changed, like, road trip now changes to maybe not always a road trip, but but it was always a road trip. So previous to Miami. So we just drive. Like one year my son's like, let's go look at Ohio. And we went everywhere. And then last year my daughter's like, hey, let's go all around Michigan, right? It's beautiful in the summer. And I came up with a way that we just roughly plan where we want to go, what cities and what route. And then I gave them an app called Road Trippers, and it's like you can put your path in, and within 5 miles, 10 miles, you can say, what are all the attractions? What are all the cool things? So last year, my daughter and I saw the world's largest weather vane in Michigan. I didn't know it was here. The world's largest pie dish Who knew? So it's just cool stuff like that, and spending multiple times. And then, I'd say, hey, it's about 4:00. We're going to be roughly in this city. Do you want to get a hotel or do you want to get an Airbnb? We just go on the app. My son likes Airbnbs. My daughter likes hotels. So, that's what I'm looking forward to this summer. I love those trips with my kids. We don't know what we're going to do yet. Sometimes they come up accidentally with opportunity. Like my son and I might go to a NASCAR race this year because we love racing. I don't know what my daughter, I know she's going to definitely want to drive a lot because she's 15 and in August she turns 16 and she needs to get more time under her belt. So she's going to pick a far drive and actually I'd say unfortunately, but actually I'll take that back. She doesn't like driving on freeways, so it won't be on the freeway, which actually will make it kind of cool. So we'll get more views. So more like things to see. So
that is really cool. The real road trip when you skip the freeways.
Yes.
What is your biggest challenge currently?
With the size of our company, communication, but balanced communication. So going, like you alluded to earlier, from even, let's just do like everyone was sub 100, right? And then we merged and became 120 right there. And then you're not merging two organizations, it's three. So everyone has a different style of communication. So then we get into this balancing act of, we should over communicate, but then that causes problems, right? That causes problems with people ignoring things, right? So this is still a challenge today, and we've tried different platforms in different ways, and some people like email and some people like, it's just that's the biggest thing. So if there's somebody out there that has experienced this at this growth, I would love to hear it, because that's one of our toughest challenges right now.
What's is there a top book or two you'd recommend that others read? Yeah.
So from the business side, it would be Traction, hands down, right? EOS, so forth. We actually got to the point where we had all our team members read, I think it's called Get a Grip. And it's like a story on what EOS is. So a lot of people like that. From a personal, like operating system wise, Procrastination on Purpose was a book that taught me that when I said yes to, like, for example, when I said yes to this interview with you, I'm saying no to something else, right?
Yeah.
It's not the summer, so my daughter's in school, right? So I'm not saying no to my daughter, but I would learn years ago when I said yes to a client saying, hey, can you do this? Then I'm automatically saying no to something else. And I had to get that okay in my head, because I always wanted to please my clients and say yes to everything, which got me in a lot of trouble sometimes, right? So
yeah, there's a whole lot I think I could try to ask you just from that. I can relate to that. This has been a tremendous gift, Dan. For all the MSP owners that are listening, or if you're open to connecting, what's the best way? How can they connect with you or reach out to you?
I don't do social media. So you can send me a LinkedIn. My team will see it, but you're more than welcome to email me, or that's probably the best way. If you email me at dan@itsasap.com, that's my work email. My admin monitors it. If you just put into the subject, hey, I heard Dan on the podcast, I want to talk to him, she will grab that email and make sure I read it. And if you're watching this in the future and I'm no longer at ITS, then it's going to be Dan and my last name, IZYDOREK @outlook.com. That's it.
Love that. What a gift for that and the future. Speaking of gifts, Dan, this has been amazing. I've learned so many things myself. Thank you for being on MSP Mindset and just the way you showed up so candidly. I love it. And it's just been a gift to me.
Thanks for asking me to join. I really had a lot of fun. And if there was a chance for another one, we'd do another one.
Yeah. We might have to do that.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.